So I was reading the headline this morning. I didn't read the entire article because the headline was self-explanatory, and you'll understand in a moment. I was reading the headline about Donald Trump's visit to the UK, and it said that that Prince Charles spent an entire hour alone with Donald Trump trying to convince him that climate change was real and that climate science was real, and was a genuine threat to civilization. And Donald Trump's response was simply that, don't blame America for climate change. Now, I want you to take a moment and go with me as I juxtapose that idiocy with this article that that ABC News reported this morning, saying that climate change could end human civilization by 2050. I want to read a couple of quotes from the article. Quote, the paper published by the Australian think tank last week gives one scenario in which by 2050, accelerating climate change impacts pose large negative consequences which might not be undone for centuries. It went on to say there is broad scientific acceptance that tipping points for the West Antarctic ice sheet and the seat ice-free Arctic summer will pass well before 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, according to the report. The Greenland ice sheet will melt well before 2 degrees Celsius of warming, and a widespread permafrost loss and large-scale drought in the Amazon will occur by 2.5 degrees of warming. And not to just read the entire article, but I really want to take a moment and put it into context. But you have to, this next line is important. Listen, quote, even with 2 degrees Celsius of warming, there's a high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end, according to the report. The only thing in this article that really sticks out to me is the fact that there's broad scientific acceptance as well as consensus that this is happening. And yet we have one half of our two-party system that is completely dedicated to undermining the science and doing so for not only political purposes, but primarily for economic purposes, serving their real constituents, which is the energy sector, not wanting to make any moves that would damage the oil industry or the auto industry or any industries or the big meat industry, right? Any industry that is remotely connected to exacerbating the problems of climate change. They don't want to do anything on those because they're getting donations from those industries. It's really that simple. But it's also that sad that we are facing this existential crisis that we have clear understanding over, that we see happening. We see shifts in our climate happening now. We see wild swings in weather happening right now. More tornadoes recorded in the last 30 days, a record number of tornadoes recorded in the last 30 days. It's not only the scientific fact that we see it coming, it's the fact that it's starting to occur, but you compound that, you add insult to injury when you have so much of our political system committed to undermining this one thing. And it's like, out of all the things that we could argue about that are, important, yes, but they're not going to be, it's not going to be the end of civilization if we don't get Medicare for all, right? Or if we politicize Medicare for all for the next 30 years. Don't get me wrong, I need and we want Medicare for all, but it's not an existential crisis for human civilization. So I get the political kabuki theater, the games that we play around some political issues. It's a horse race, it's a game. But there's if there's a meteor coming to the planet, and we see it coming, and there's something that we could do about it, there's no politicization of that. And if anybody actually wants to politicize that, then we need to drag them out into the streets and have a conversation with them about politics. I gotta remember this is actually public radio. So, but you get the point, right? There's some things that we could play with. There's some things that we can argue about, and play with is not the right phrase, but argue over. But an existential crisis that could be the end of human civilization. I mean, we don't even have to dramatize this, right? It's happening. We see it happening. The data shows it's happening. But there's a level of frustration when you're looking at a person who knows good and well that the science is saying that climate change is occurring and that we are getting close to a tipping point, a point of no return. And now this latest report is saying that it could end civilization by 2050. And this is, let me read one more paragraph. One more paragraph, because I think you can understand why this is not so much hyperbole. They said, quote, "The warming will also bring more than 20 days annually of lethal heat conditions beyond the threshold of human survivability," scientists report. Deadly heat conditions will persist for more than 100 days a year in West Africa, tropical South America, the Middle East, and South Asia, which will displace more than 1 billion people from those areas. So we're not talking about necessarily an existential crisis in terms of like a movie. You know, people are going to dismiss this video and so many other conversations because they try to they basically straw man you, like, oh, there's not going to be a massive wave that comes and destroys everybody and civilization is over. No. So the way this works is that when you have 1 billion displaced people, you have a situation that undermines the stability of every government, of every institution, every supply chain, every food chain. I mean, everything that makes our system work. When you have 1 billion people strategically placed, not the correct word, but you understand what I'm saying, like placed in every region of the globe, there's not going to be a place on the face of the planet that is not affected by this displacement of 1 billion people. And there's not really a place on the planet that can absorb that number of people and still have a sustainable model. And so when we say the end of civilization, we're not talking about mass extinction yet. We're talking about the fact that our systems and our institutions will not be able to handle the mass displacement of billions of people occurring at the same time because of the conditions that we joke about today, that the Republicans think is a game, that they blame God for it, and they say, oh, God will take it. You know, all the stupid things that are said to undermine the fight against climate change. It's a level of seriousness, especially when you have kids. Like, you know, 2050, I'll be 70 years old. So maybe I'll still be here, but you know, hopefully my kids will be young still. But I digress.